On January 26, 2026, the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group crossed into U.S. Central Command's area of responsibility in the Middle East. This wasn't a routine deployment. This was a message written in 100,000 tons of nuclear-powered steel, 90 strike aircraft, and enough Tomahawk cruise missiles to level every critical military installation in Iran. Within 48 hours, President Trump posted on Truth Social, "A massive armada of the strongest ships in the world is heading to Iran. Time is running out. Make a deal or face consequences far worse than Operation Midnight Hammer." For context, Operation Midnight Hammer was the June 2025 strike that sent 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers deep into Iranian airspace to drop 14 GBU-57 bunker buster bombs on Iran's nuclear facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. The operation involved over 125 aircraft, 24 Tomahawk missiles, and achieved complete tactical surprise. Iran's air defenses never even fired back. But leaked Defense Intelligence Agency assessments tell a different story. Core centrifuge components and uranium stockpiles were likely relocated before the strikes. The operation set Iran's nuclear program back by months, not years. And now, 7 months later, Iran is rebuilding. Satellite imagery shows new construction at the Isfahan nuclear complex. Intelligence reports suggest Iran still possesses over 400 kilograms of uranium, enriched to 60% purity, just one technical step away from weapons-grade material. And that's why the Abraham Lincoln is now sitting off Iran's coast with 5,000-plus sailors and Marines, 75-plus aircraft, 3 Tomahawk armed destroyers, and orders to be ready, not willing, and able to strike. The question isn't whether Trump will attack Iran. The question is whether Iran will give him a reason not to. Let's break down exactly what firepower the United States has assembled in the Middle East right now. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is the centerpiece. The carrier itself is a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered supercarrier, 1,092 feet long, displacing 100,000 tons, and capable of launching 90 sorties per day indefinitely. On board, F/A-18E/F Super Hornets, F-35C, Lightning II stealth fighters, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, and MH-60 helicopters. Escorting the carrier are 3 Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, the USS Spruance, USS Michael Murphy, and USS Frank E. Peterson, Jr. Each destroyer carries 90-plus Tomahawk cruise missiles with a range exceeding 1,000 miles, plus Aegis combat systems for layered air and missile defense. That's just the carrier strike group. The broader U.S. Their military buildup includes IPF-15E Strike Eagles deployed to Jordan, B-52 Stratofortress bombers stationed in Qatar, additional fighter squadrons across the region, a THAAD battery for ballistic missile interception, a Tomahawk-armed submarine already in the Persian Gulf, and UK Royal Air Force Typhoon fighters in Qatar. In total, the United States now has at least 10 warships in the region, protecting approximately 40,000 to 50,000 U.S. troops stationed at bases across Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. This is the largest concentration of U.S. military power in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. On January 29th, Trump issued his ultimatum to Iran. The demands are sweeping: halt all uranium enrichment and dispose of existing stockpiles. Limit ballistic missile development, especially missiles capable of reaching Israel. End support for proxy groups including Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, and Iraqi militias. Allow full IAEA inspections of all nuclear sites. In exchange, Trump has offered sanctions relief and normalized relations. But he's made clear, Negotiate now or face military action that will make Operation Midnight Hammer look like a warning shot. Iran's response? Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi rejected negotiations under threat, stating that Iran's armed forces are ready for immediate and powerful retaliation, while remaining open to a fair deal. Translation: Iran won't negotiate with a gun to its head, but it also doesn't want a war it can't win. Here's where things get dangerous. On January 27th, the commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, declared that his forces have their finger on the trigger and are prepared to respond to any U.S. aggression. Brigadier General Mohammad Akraminia warned of decisive and instantaneous retaliation, targeting U.S. aircraft carriers and Gulf bases within missile range. This isn't empty rhetoric. Iran has the capability to make good on these threats, at least partially. Iran's missile arsenal includes Fateh 110 and Zulfiqar short-range ballistic missiles, Sejil and Imad medium-range missiles capable of reaching U.S. bases across the Gulf, and Shahab-3 missiles capable of striking Israel and U.S. bases in Turkey. In January 2020, after the U.S. killed IRGC Quds Force Commander Qasem Soleimani, Iran launched 16 ballistic missiles at Ain al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, injuring over 100 U.S. troops. The strike demonstrated Iran's precision. They hit exactly what they aimed at. But Iran's real ace in the hole isn't missiles, it's geography. The Strait of Hormuz is a 21-mile-wide choke point between Iran and Oman, through which approximately 20% of the world's oil and significant global LNG passes every day. It's the jugular vein of the global energy market. Iran has repeatedly threatened to close the strait in response to U.S. military action. In late January 2026, the IRGC claimed it has complete control of the strait through naval mines, fast attack boats armed with anti-ship missiles, coastal missile batteries, and surveillance systems on Iranian-controlled islands. Could Iran actually close the Strait of Hormuz? Not indefinitely. The U.S. Fifth Fleet has overwhelming superiority. Iran could disrupt shipping for days, maybe a week, through mining operations or sporadic attacks. But a sustained closure? Not against U.S. and allied forces. However, even temporary disruption would be catastrophic. Oil prices would spike. Insurance rates for tankers would skyrocket. Global supply chains would seize up. And China, which imports significant oil through Hormuz, would be forced to take a position. This is Iran's deterrent. You can bomb our nuclear sites, but we can crash the global economy. The United States and Iran have been playing this game of brinkmanship for decades. So why does this moment feel different? First, Trump has already proven he's willing to strike. Operation Midnight Hammer wasn't a limited strike. It was a massive, coordinated assault involving 7 stealth bombers, over 125 aircraft, and 24 cruise missiles. Second, Iran's nuclear program is closer to weaponization than ever before. As of May 2025, Iran possessed over 408 kilograms of uranium, enriched to 60% purity. Weapons-grade uranium requires 90% enrichment. But the technical leap from 60% to 90% is relatively small. With Iran's existing centrifuge capacity, they could produce enough weapons-grade uranium for 5 to 6 nuclear bombs in under 2 weeks. Third, Iran's regime is more vulnerable than it's been in decades. Since late December 2025, Iran has been engulfed in massive protests. The government claims over 3,000 people have been killed. The Iranian rial has collapsed to 1.47 million to the dollar. Water shortages are forcing mass migration. The regime is under pressure from within and without. Trump likely calculates that Iran is too weak domestically to sustain a prolonged military confrontation. This isn't just about Iran's nuclear program. It's about the future of the Middle East power structure. If Trump strikes Iran and succeeds in crippling their nuclear program without triggering regional war, it sends a message to every adversary. American military power is back, and we're willing to use it. But if Iran successfully retaliates, if they sink a U.S. warship, kill significant numbers of American troops, or close the Strait of Hormuz, even temporarily, it demonstrates that even overwhelming U.S. military superiority has limits. And that emboldens China in the Pacific, Russia in Eastern Europe, and every other power challenging the U.S.-led order. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Israel are watching closely. They want Iran's nuclear program eliminated, but fear the consequences of regional war. China is watching too. Roughly 10% of China's oil imports transit the Strait of Hormuz. A closure would force Beijing to choose between staying neutral and protecting its energy security. The U.S. has 10-plus warships in the region. Iran has fast attack boats and aging frigates. The U.S. has fifth-generation stealth fighters. Iran's Air Force flies F-4 Phantoms from the 1960s. The U.S. can strike anywhere in Iran with precision. Iran can harass shipping and launch missiles at fixed bases. But Iran doesn't need to win a conventional war. They just need to make the cost of victory higher than America is willing to pay. A few hundred U.S. casualties, a temporary oil shock, a regional conflagration that drags in Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq. That's Iran's strategy. Not to win, but to make winning too expensive.